You guys, welcome back to the Self-Selecting Podcast. I'm your host, Corey Hageman, and today we're joined by Tate Donley. You've seen her on my story. You've seen her on Instagram. Thank you so much for doing this. I was very hesitant to ask you to do this given in the proximity to the show because I was like, you don't really, not you, but like globally, I know for me, like I don't really turn back into a human for like a month, like after I compete.
No, I think the timing of it was actually great because it kind of helped me like stave off the post-show blues a little bit. So it was like another thing to look forward to get excited about. So no, it was great.
That's so cool. Thank you. I mean, for listeners who don't know, we've been working together since 23. I mean, like, it's been a while, and I was trying to like, I've talked about you on 2 Patreons now. One was like just you, very creepy, I know, and like, I was like trying to think back, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need like a referenced timeline because like I remember when we did our consultation, um, and I mean, like, it's gonna sound like I'm blowing smoke, but like, I hope you know how genuine I mean this. Like, I knew from talking with you the first time, I was like, yo, like she's gonna do it. Like, she's gonna do this thing, and like, I'd love to like be a part in facilitating that. But like, I mean, it's a rarity to be able to work with someone in this capacity at your level because you came to me self-coached, which is already such a rarity in our sport, and especially like self-coached and then placing like what was the show in 23? Did you get 10th or was it
Yeah, it was junior nationals and I got 8th.
8th? Okay. I was like, it's 7th or 10th. I'm wrong on both of those.
Yeah.
Amazing. Great start.
I remember so clearly too. It was dead last in first call out. So I like never forget that number 8.
I'm trying to think back then, 23, gosh, like, so at that point, like how many shows had you done at that point in your career?
Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So junior nationals, that was my 4th show.
Okay. And I remember one of the points on the call that you made was like, hey, like it was a lot to do this myself. Like it was exhausting. I didn't really know how lean I needed to be at what point, like to pull back. And I mean, like even up until that point, like I think I remember you like had a fairly easy time, like getting as conditioned as you did, right?
Yeah, that was kind of, I mean, anybody who's coached themselves, I'm sure can identify with this very heavily, but like that was the one thing that I knew I didn't want to like not do properly. I knew how to get lean like very well and I knew that my body would do it. So I just kind of like it's like, all right, this is the one thing that I have figured out. I'm just gonna do it all the way. And that was I do actually think that my conditioning in that show was like pretty spot on where it needed to be. Everything else could have been severely improved upon, but yeah, conditioning was good.
I mean, placing in first callouts your first national show it's really a milestone and it's impressive. There's a lot of people. My first national show, I remember like kind of like sitting with Shane Hughley's team, and there was like multiple girls that like they're like, this is my 11th national show. They're like, I'm just hoping for third callouts or second. Well, I mean, they're hoping for the pro card, but they're like, I'll just take second, like, you know, and I think like a lot of people, maybe listeners have that story too, where they've been in the sport, they've gotten very accustomed to the level of competition. But the unique thing about when you got into the sport, it was 2020, right?
Um, yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, like that was a pretty big turning point. Like, was that Jen or Janet who won around that time? I forget if it was 2021, but like both of those physiques were like really kind of paving the way. Like it was a big swing from what we had seen historically. And like 23, 24, 25, like we've talked about this, like it's mind-blowing to me to see the density, to see the growth, even to see the conditioning needs and like how people are emulating that and coming to stage with these looks that like I mean they're no longer what bikini was in 2020, like even let alone 23.
Yeah, that was um in Charleston this year at Junior USA's. I remember really clearly like walking backstage and looking at the girls I was lining up with and realizing like in that moment that this was not the same game. that it was in 2023. Like even just since then at the national level, um, the density and honestly the level of conditioning that I was seeing was like, yeah, completely different world. It was kind of shocking to walk back there and realize like, oh, this is where we are now. Okay.
And that, I mean, that's the tricky part is like when you competed in 23, you did amazing showings at both shows. North Americans, like I remember just being stunned in like the transformation from check-in pictures to actually on stage. And, you know, even though we saw like room for improvement, like it was just such a productive showing compared to how you had taken the stage last time. And you know, I like distinctly remember after nationals, like sitting with you upstairs backstage and like it just not like not being able to solidify that season and being like, yeah, like the girl beat you, like the girls that were ahead, they were denser and like, you know, you have great density. Like you really objectively do. It's just on the stage, it's like these girls are just like monsters. Like they're just bigger. And people often they're like, oh, Tate's like 5'9", 5'10". I'm like, no, she's like 2 inches taller than me. Like you're just limmy. Like you've got great structure. It's just like we got to fill it out. And I mean, it's impressive working with you and like being able to see like you went through so many changes after that season. You moved like cross country entirely, switched jobs. But then also it was just like that was the first point that I was like, okay, like I would love to expedite this, but you know, we're very much aligned with like, I think I told you, like, even initially after those first shows, is like, we have to be careful and thoughtful with like how we go about using any kind of PEDs because you're going to be in the sport for a long time, whether, I mean, assuming you want to be. And that's not something like you don't have the luxury to be more heavy handed with it. And I'll just say, like, I don't think I've ever verbalized it to you, but like, I really, really am grateful that we're very aligned there. Because with clients, that's not always the case for me. And that sucks because it's like, I'm not doing this for my sake, dude. Like, I'm doing it for yours. Like, I promise this is not selfish. I just want you to not hate me in 2 years.
Yeah. That's honestly when I transitioned um from being so determined that I was going to earn my pro card as a self-coached athlete to then like it was really after my first national show after I stepped on stage at junior nationals and realizing like this is not something one that I foresee myself achieving naturally anytime soon, and two, something that I think I can guide myself towards. So when I just made the decision to find a coach, that's what drew me to you, was because I was familiar with your material and your kind of your approach to PEDs and your um, not overly aggressive nature, just kind of like throw everything at the wall, see what sticks kind of a thing. So that's what drew me to you as a coach, was that I think from the beginning, like before we had our first call, I knew we were pretty aligned on our attitude towards that. Um, and then the other thing that like, especially after this season, after seeing what like the national level looks like now and even what the pro level is going to be looking like going forward and kind of how aggressive a lot of people are with their approach to PEDs, I'm even more grateful now for you and your attitude towards it because I feel very, very secure in my longevity in the sport, which I think a lot of people either don't think about or are ignoring intentionally.
Yeah, I mean, you articulated that so well, and it's a tricky position as a coach to have someone as talented as you because like, you know, we've talked about this structurally. There are people that like, I mean, no matter how bad they want it and how many drugs they use, like it's just they're not going to have the potential to take it as far as they might want to. And that is not you at all. Like you like I'm very envious of your glutes. Uh but like honestly, I do think like with the direction that the division's gone and also just like it's not even the physique, it's even more so the mindset that you have and your awareness and your maturity around like, okay, these decisions have a cost. So I'm not even just talking about PEDs. I'm even talking about like getting on stage super frequently. I've had so many girls, and I'm sure you've had friends, competitors who like you see and you're like, you're hitting every national show, you're doing regional shows, trying to like, just make the judges see you. And it's like, you haven't had an off season since like, for 4 years. And like, of course you haven't made improvements. Of course you look weathered. And that was something like I really appreciated about like, it seemed like even outside of my input, like you did have it in your mind. Like I can be realistic about what improvements I need to make, about where I'm at, about what's going to make me dangerous as a competitor. So like, here's how that's going to play out. It's not going to be me getting on stage in 2 months after I start to miss it. So I mean, like you've been great to coach. You've been very, I see a lot of similarities in the challenges that I struggle with as well. And I think that's been a big advantage too, is, I've talked about this so many times, in reference to you, is saying like, you can have a type A individual who, they don't need hand holding. They don't need someone like to tell them to train hard and to do their diet. They need you to talk them off a ledge because they're suicidal at this point. Like, and I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot. I know you put a lot of pressure on yourself to do well this season. So I think to kind of set this up, I want to contrast with how the prep went in 23, getting ready for North Americans, from your perspective.
That was the easiest prep that I have had to date. And easy, I think, mentally and psychologically, because that was the first prep that I had with a coach, with guidance, with somebody just telling me, this is the plan, this is what we're doing, and all I had to do was execute. So that took a huge load off of me psychologically. So it was easier in that sense. Easier in the sense that like psychologically I was so checked in, like I was so motivated. I felt so good about what we had done in the off season, and I felt really, really confident in the package that I knew we would bring to stage. So like I was just driven. Like I have never felt, like to this day, that prep was the most driven I felt in a prep. And then physically it was also just seemed very smooth. Like I remember there was a week, and I think we were probably 6 or 7 weeks into prep at that point, and I had dropped a few pounds, and then we put Clen in place, and then there was a week where over the course of like 7 days I think I lost like 6 or 7 pounds. Like it just fell off of me. It was insane. And then from that point, more or less, like maybe 2 or 3 weeks after that, food started to go back up. So I actually like reversed out of that like really, really seamlessly for several weeks. So physically that was the best that I had felt in a prep also. So like that whole prep, like textbook, perfect programming, perfect execution, like the whole thing just felt so good.
I know. I felt this year, I felt so bad. I'm like, what are we doing wrong? Like, what is happening? But I guess I want to like highlight this too, because this was a learning experience for me as well, because I've had, as you described, like those preps where it's like, it's just moving well. The fatigue's there, the hunger is there, but like, you're not questioning, like, am I going to lose weight? And like the pictures like are promising each week. And you're like, is this right?
Yeah.
And I don't think it occurred to me this season until I sent you that side by side. And I was like, like we're just hitting the point that you started prep at in 23. Like we're just breaking that weight. I think it was like 137, 136.
Yeah, it was 530.
And I've done preps from 152, done preps from 141 that like kicked my ass. But the preps that I've done where I've started heavier, it's like, I know I said this to you at one point, is like, it just like nothing's happening. Nothing feels like it's happening. You're working so hard for like such little, like so little reward the first few months. And I do think I'm like, okay, like moving forward, I'm like, okay, we can be tighter in the off season in the sense, not that you weren't tight with it. I was very much at the time like committed to like, yeah, I think weight's going up appropriately. But But now this was like, it was honestly, this season was the first time I was like, okay, like here is now the consequence of that. And here's the consequence of like putting so much fat loss into one go. And then like even like physically, there's the aspect of it, like you're very capable. But then what I didn't anticipate was the mental side of it, which I think is completely reasonable. And I've been there myself so many times, is like knowing that like, shoot, like I'm going to have to work at 110% the entire time just to make it in on time.
Yeah.
And that's where I think like we can be more strategic about how we structure that and have more foresight to be like, okay, like we're not going to start a prep with that starting weight in mind, where you have like multiple months before we're in striking distance. I think like honestly, like in that 140 range is going to be like perfect for you to kick things off, because like at your height, I mean, like this time you competed at like 119, your pro debut, and like you looked phenomenal. And I think the conditioning was there. But like, I think the girls at your height, I think realistically they're getting on stage like 125 to 130.
Yeah.
And that's scary to think about. Like,
big girl.
yeah. And I guess with that, like, you know, when we moved into the off season, I've done 4 podcasts today, so it's a recording day for me. So we're caffeinated up now.
Yeah.
But in one of them I was talking about, I used you as reference too, because like you're one of the clients that I moved to 3 upper days in the off season, because I mean like your glutes, Diamond and glutes, Sandy loves your glutes, everyone in the judging panel loves your glutes. And when we got done with that season, like the focus was largely, okay, we need to build that maturity, that density up top to match. And I mean, like going into that off season, now being on the other side of it, what was that like now seeing, okay, like how much muscle did I actually build? Yeah.
It's kind of disorienting to think about it a little bit. I knew finishing the season in 2023, I knew like that there was going to have to be some pretty serious growth. I will say that I think it's kind of the classic like rabbit hole of a bodybuilder is like, I thought mid off season, towards the end of the off season, I thought that I had put more tissue on than I had. Like that's the assumption I made, and maybe not by much, but seeing how high weight got and truthfully like how hard we pushed and how hard I was working, how hard I was training, like I thought that I would have ended that off season with more tissue, and that's like I will never make that mistake again. I will always be a little bit more like psychologically conservative with my estimations on those types of things. But I do think that I don't regret doing the off season the way that we did. I think that it was beneficial. And I think that I learned, it was good perspective for me to see like one, what a like hard push in a structured off season looks like. But then 2, it was also perspective on like what is going to be required going forward. Like, you know, that was necessary to get to the physique that I brought to stage this year and the rewards that reaped. But then standing on stage at my pro debut with all these other pro bikini ladies and seeing like truly how much density and size they had on me now, even it's very humbling. But I'm excited because like that's, in a lot of ways, that's like the essence of bodybuilding. I mean, that's, you know, we're building the physique. That's what we do. So like it was challenging as an off season because it was so much more intense and such a more severe push than I had ever done before. But it was good because it was perspective of like what is going to be required moving forward. And I think that I needed that.
No, I love that. And I think it takes a lot of self-awareness to be able to say like, no, this was my best, like, and it was good enough. Like, I think that's where a lot of people lose sight. And that, I mean, like typically where I see that then translating to is then you have people second guessing themselves and they start to think, okay, well, like I need to lean on way more drugs. Like that's the only outlet. And like, I think even like hearing you kind of articulate that, like, you know, being enhanced, it'll speed things up, but like there's a max speed, there's a top speed. Also, by the way, Jordan's getting into F1. I know that's your jam. And
Yes.
like
Yes.
his whole For You page, like I swear, I don't know if you saw, we got a Porsche in Europe and
Yes.
like,
Beautiful.
it didn't get rented. So much fun. We're gonna talk about this later.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. I love it. Good.
but there's a top speed in which you can scale up. And like, I mean, even for you, like I remember there was one check-in we did in the off season. Remind me of like the max circumference on your delts. Cause it was something dumb. Like it was just I think I told Jordan, I was like, yeah, like she's catching up to you. Like I
You
was
remember,
serious.
I do. I have a very clear memory of that check-in because you said something about it, and then I actually went and looked at the spreadsheet, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Okay, yeah, it was it was big.
Yeah. And I mean like that's the thing is like you're structured like even with so much more tissue from last time. I mean like I think it just takes a lot of awareness and maturity to not like dog on yourself and be like, oh, like I didn't push hard enough. And like we were, I would say, reasonably aggressive with PED use, within what I'm comfortable with. And like even then, like I wouldn't change that. Like I wouldn't have added more. Or I mean, like there are things like I can look back and be like, hey, like you could have tried this, but the PED side of things, like that wouldn't have been something I would have been more aggressive with. And I think it like even seeing now and being like, okay, there is more to do. You're going to be in this sport for a while and you have the potential to be competitive and to hang. So like we have to be careful about that because like preserving your femininity has always been something we've talked about. And like I think this season for me, after we talked at Junior USA's, like you asked me like, is this something that is even in the cards for me without being more aggressive than I've told you I'm comfortable with? And that was the first time that I was like, fuck, dude, I don't know. Like
Yeah.
but I do know if anyone's gonna do it, it is gonna be you. It's gonna be someone with your potential. And realistically, it just means we have to like keep everything buttoned up. Like there isn't a large margin for error in terms of peaking, in terms of not being as tight as you need to be. Like we're gonna have to like capitalize on all of those levers that we can because you're not willing to do. And like I even told you then, I was like, I'm not willing to do that to you. Like I'm not willing to tell you to take this much, even though I know that's what the girls you're competing against are taking. And um I think for a lot of people, they assume that like you take something long enough or you take enough of it, and it's a direct like A to B like cause correlation. And um yeah, I mean like it was cool to hear like standing next to the pros, like you were physically able to see, especially Emily. Like she's about
Yes.
the same height as you, but she's dense. Like
Yeah.
she has wide hips and a, I mean that as a compliment. Like that's an advantage. But like she's dense. And to see like I mean like that's the thing, you look so dense in your individual check-in pictures, and like until we see you on stage I'm like, fuck, like
Yeah. You
of
like
course we need more muscle. Like
you have no idea until you're standing there because like that was the getting to stand next to Emily in particular was really cool for me because she won the overall at junior nationals the year that I did my first national show. And I like, she was in all the media and all of the socials for junior nationals that year. And like, she looked absolutely incredible. And I just like idolized her. I fell in love with her physique. So then to get to stand on stage next to her was like so surreal for me. Um, but that's taking check-ins throughout prep and seeing like as body fat starts to get lower and lower and like you start to see more lines, and I felt really good about my density going into, I mean, even going into Charleston at the beginning of the year. um and then you stand on stage. It's like the most disorienting thing because I felt massive, and especially with some carbs in and a pump, it's like I feel like a monster. And then you stand on stage or you look at stage shots and it's like it's not actually quite enough yet. um but I do, I mean, even longevity in the sport aside, I and preserving femininity aside, I would prefer just the way like my methodology about training and nutrition and supplementation, like all of the other pieces that have to be in place, like I don't trust myself to load PEDs to a like borderline irresponsible place and not have those other aspects of the sport start to slip. Like I need to keep myself buttoned up and in line with all of those things for me to feel justified in using compounds. And I'm very glad that I had done everything that I have, and then I found you, and that you have put things in place that I never would have just as an individual self-coached athlete. But it is kind of watching the division progress and seeing like what some of these girls are doing or have to do to perform at the level that they do is like truly mind-blowing to me sometimes. And like just when you think that your physique has progressed to a place where you're like, yes, like this is good, feedback is going to be like, don't grow. It's like, no, the feedback will for me probably always be to grow.
Yo, all of us. Sandy even said it. She's like, all of y'all just get bigger.
Yeah,
Like,
just another few
well, I don't know what I've been doing for the last like 4 years straight.
So
Yeah.
every waking moment trying to get bigger.
Yeah. I remember, so like in 21, when I was coached with Shane, um, we used a lot of Diazide. Like every show that I did, there's so much Diazide. And like I was open to it because I was an idiot. And like, it's not a knock at him. It's like, that's the way that people were like, but okay. So at the time, like when I started working with John after that, um, he's like 212, like well established now. He's open. And like, I don't know his protocols now, but I still prescribe to the idea of like, hey, if you have really big guys not even using Diazide or using like very little, and they have so much more tissue and they have so much more anabolics in place, like what business, like what are you trying to accomplish? And like that was the thing after like Junior USA's this year, where I'm like, I've heard these different protocols because these people are paying me money and then telling me their protocols and asking if it's good or not. I'm like, this is insane. And like, and I'm like, I remember 4 years ago, like it was like taboo for like for us, our people to use Diazide, to use Nolvadex, and now it's just like you're not using that, like and for listeners to be clear, like we didn't use either of those. We did just we tried a water cut. I don't really know. I don't know. I feel like this second peak was a little more aligned with like just what we can do predictably. And like I think I talked about that on a previous episode, like trying to push myself as a coach to be like, hey, how can we keep up with this? Like from a peaking standpoint, how can we bring a look, even if conditioning is not like 100%, or if we know it might be variable with travel, like, and I do think your best look, I think, largely came at your pro debut, even better than when you turned pro. And I think a big part of that was the predictability of like the peaking protocol. Also, yes, being a little tighter, but then truly like the expectations that, you and I talked about is like, this is just feedback. Like this isn't a direct correlation with like your value as a competitor. And like, regardless of how this show goes, like you can be done, you can keep going. Like there's not that pressure to like do another national show, which like I have mixed feelings like about Junior USA's and like telling you I want you to do that one. I think it was very optimistic there, and I didn't. I think I had the taste in my mouth of your last prep where you did North Americans and then you had to take so long between North Americans and nationals. And I was like, I don't want that to happen again. So even if this isn't the one, at least it can give us like a baseline and we have more shots after this so that like if we're that close, like it's not waiting 3 months to get back on stage.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if I ever verbalized that to you directly, but it was like I felt bad for how long you had to wait in between North Americans and nationals, because like it's hard to be productive. It's hard to maintain that. You don't really get to like come out of a prep, kind of, but like you're still suffering.
Yeah. That was, I mean, when we made the decision to compete, like to start towards the end of like the national season that year, I knew that was like a very strong possibility. And I know that was it Was it totally ideal to wait those 3 months? Like, no, absolutely not. If there had been another show in there, we would have done it. Um, but also like I wasn't ready after North Americans, like I wasn't ready to give up. Like I wasn't ready to call it, you know? So like I wholeheartedly believe if at any point in that 3 month gap that I had told you like, hey, I'm done. I can't do this. Like that would have been it. We would have been done and we would have gone into an off season. But I was I was stubborn. I didn't want to let it go. I wanted to get back on stage again.
I mean, fuck, dude, you're so close and you looked incredible. Like you struck a balance. And I think a large part of that was like the prep itself was tolerable and it was manageable. And I think like, we can never predict how these things are going to go. But I think like I learned a lot as a coach, as an athlete too, with this prep for you on like, okay, like even if you can tolerate it, like what is what's the yield from that? Like, what's the best look we can bring with having to cut down that much weight in that amount of time? And I am just so glad after USA's, we didn't have to do North Americans. Like, I was so happy. I was like, for you, I'm like, oh, this is so good. Like she can take a beat if she wants. But that's the kind of sick part about like being a pro is like there's shows every weekend. Like
Yeah.
you just travel and there's no entry fee. There's just a steep annual fee, but realistically, like you have a lot of flexibility and like there's a whole idea with like pro shows like, well, is this going to be easy? Is it going to be hard? And they've kind of cracked down, I think, on like who can jump in. Like you can't jump in like a day before. I believe, maybe I'm wrong.
I think because I read the full like disclosure waiver when I signed. I think it's you have to sign your contract by the Monday before whatever day, but it's a Friday or Saturday. So it's like, yeah, almost a week.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, like in 22, what happened was there was a lot of like gamifying shows, and a lot of coaches were complaining about that. They're like, you can't like let the list come out and then let like a bunch of girls jump in last minute because like that is just like, I mean, I don't even know what their argument was, but ethically it's just like it feels a little weird. And then like I saw today, like they're changing now the Olympia requirements to the points, which is I'm really pumped for that, but I'm also like I haven't enough there's not enough hours today for me to think about that too, but like part of me is like that's going to breed a lot of people competing very frequently, which will lead to more drug use. Like even more.
That was actually the first thought that I had when I saw that Olympia qualification update. I was like, okay, well, we're back to points, so there's girls gonna be cranking out a dozen or more shows in a season.
Yeah.
Take to make them even denser, and how am I gonna have to compensate for that going into my rookie season as a pro? So it'll be very interesting for sure.
It will be. Yeah. I I think when we look at like the direction that fit model is going, which like I don't think I've come right out and said it to you, but like that is a real consideration for me next year is like I I've built and I'm denser and I like the muscle I have, but like there is that part of me that's like I don't know if I can hang or realistically if I want to try to compete with that. It's just it costs a lot. Like and it's a risk like realistically I don't know if I want to take at this point. Like I want to be able to compete and I want to be able to do it in a way that doesn't like compromise what I'm doing with business or take away from my clients. Like I like what I've built, and that was a very real thing for me in this prep this year I did that I never finished is like I got to a point I'm like, okay, like if I put drugs in place, I've done this before, like I know it'll increase the fullness. I can probably get 5 pounds, like sweet. But I mean, like the lowest I got was like 132. And I'm like, okay, I still like I'm shredded in a lot of the right areas, but how is this actually going to look on stage? And realistically, if I am using drugs to push that fullness, and let's say I just like the peak is perfect and I look my best, what's going to happen when I realize like, oh yeah, like you actually need to be another 5 pounds heavier. And I don't really know where I'm at, but I can say like in my experience, like the fit model girls are also using drugs too. And like, they're not light drugs. It's not a natural division. I know I came out in December and said, I'm hopeful this will be like natural bikini. Yeah, I was wrong. I knew it was very short lived. But I mean, like, I do have some hope that that division will at least like create a safeguard, not necessarily for you, but like for people that are like, hey, I'm not comfortable pursuing this anymore. Or I've done it enough to know that like that threshold, I mean, like, I either have to cross it or it's going to be a while before I get there. And that's where I guess I really want to hear your opinion with like what you've seen on Fit Model so far, what you've seen in Bikini so far around the evolution, the progression. What are your thoughts around that, around people transitioning either as pros or at the national level for individuals who kind of share that same sentiment?
Yeah, I've personally known a few girls that I met when I first started competing, like that we had done posing seminars together back in like 2019, 2020. And that had gone like competed at the national level, done relatively well, and then have now transitioned into fit model. Um, and I know a lot of them did that because they, even regardless of drug use, they felt that it would be so much more time effective to be competitive in fit model with the physique that they had built aiming for bikini. And some of them had done that naturally and some hadn't. But the thing that I saw that I think I've seen sort of trending within like who is winning pro cards in fit model and who is placing well in fit model at the national level, is that they're not the ones that I have seen at least, and this is very subjective viewing, but they're not necessarily that much smaller than bikini. It's just slightly less density and far less conditioning. It's like the shape is there. A lot of these fit model girls are actually carrying like a pretty reasonable amount of tissue. And even looking at like was it Ashley when Ashley won the Olympia that was what fit model was supposed to be kind of fashioned after, like the original bikini look. Um, so I'm really interested to see how fit model evolves because I do think that like I think fit model had the potential to be more of a natural division, like you were saying, that like this is a look that the right people with the right programming and dedication and discipline in place can achieve this physique naturally. Is that the case, and is that what's happening? I don't think so. Which I mean, to each their own. I don't view that in a negative light, but it'll be interesting to see how it evolves. Because my personal opinion is that it will evolve much in the same way that bikini has, to an extent, where because we've seen even what bikini has become from 2023 to now, and it is a noticeable difference. And I think that with the relatively widespread introduction of PEDs in fit model athletes, that same type of curve will likely be followed. Again, we'll see to what degree that happens. Bikini, it's I was actually thinking about this after the show on Saturday night and like looking at photos. One of the photos that I think you sent me, actually, it was like my first check-in that I did with you after junior nationals, and looking back to like state shots from my first show. And like I did really well at my first show. It was Night of Champions in Washington, and I did really, really well, and I was really proud of the look that I had. And now looking at where I am and truthfully how much farther I still have to go to be a competitive pro, um, is like mind blowing to what was viewed at the time as like a really solid amateur level physique to now what is like a slightly below average pro physique. Um, the I could not have guessed when I decided to compete in bikini in 2020 that this is where I would be now. Like this was not something that I foresaw. And that could be just because I was young and naive and kind of an idiot and didn't totally know what I was getting into. Um, but I mean, from your perspective, do you think that like when you think back to yourself in 2020, 2021, and what bikini was at that point, did any part of you like foresee it becoming what it is now to this degree?
No, no, not at all. Like, the physique I had at Junior USA's, like, and I didn't have Anavar in for that one. Like, I don't think I used Clen. I was like weird about it. I was just like really dumb. I had Nolvadex, but had Diazine. No T4, T3. It was just so senseless. But that like look, like I look at like my delts and I'm like I am like, oh, they're big there. And even like Mile High, like I I love like Emily uses like this clip I have from that show, like standing next to Ashley, and that was like Ashley in 21. So I mean, like she's always looked incredible, but like she's built a lot of muscle since then, and like she like ate me up, like you know, I mean, like in the most flattering way ever. Like she was so much denser then, and like I was just femurs, like just femurs and tie-ins in my knees. Like that was it. And like, I mean, I'm very self-deprecating, you know this, but like I love that those looks, like they looked good. But I've said this and it's not self-deprecating. I really mean this. Like I don't think I would turn pro in today's lineup. Like I think it'd be really hard. I think I'd be very much outsized. And like even in 22, like I brought like a physique that was way too lean to Night of Champions. It was also what was appropriate for my tie-ins, like for my level of muscularity. So it's like, you know, it was cool. The process was cool. But then after that, like the Mile High, I like my upper body, seeing those stage shots, I can never post them. Please don't go look them up if y'all are listening. But like I remember being like, I'm so jacked in the upper body. Like, and I don't really, from how I want to walk around it, like I don't like that look for me. Like I don't want to be that broad and that like muscular and up top. Like it, because I don't have that same balance in the lower body, makes me feel very figure-esque. And that's not the look I like. And even when I look at like the fullness and like what I brought in 22 with Anavar, with like really push, like I competed at like 124 that show, and like I couldn't have been fuller. But realistically, like I I felt like how you're describing, and like let me just be clear, like you're certainly not below average, and like it's exactly what I said to you after the show is like you have things that people can't like like they can build muscle, sure, they're not going to have the shape, and that's the part, like when you look at like Amy Delgado, when you look at Issa, when you look at Laura Lee, like that's the edge. That's what makes them dangerous, is like people can't build those physiques. They can build their best physiques, but it's going to be really hard to be competitive against that, and you have that. So it's like for you, I very much see it like it is a muscularity thing. It's not a conditioning thing. Like you don't struggle to lose body fat in that sense the way some people do. um your shape's there, you have an it factor. Like when you get on stage, people want to look at you, and like no one wants to say that, but that's a big part of it. Like, you know, so um yeah, I think like for this showing, like it definitely for you, it highlighted like, okay, like there is more muscle. And that like I really I fucked up so bad with finals. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry making go back to that. I really
It's not your fault. It is not on you. Um, well, I was getting like walked over to get glazed, and I was standing there, and I was like, "There's not that many of us here," and I started looking around, and I realized very like quickly, I was like, "Oh, I'm the 11th." Okay, like,
yeah. I
it was
think they would have let you get on stage. Honestly, I think
like when I went over to get glazed, like none of the expediters said anything. None of like the pro tan people said anything. None of the other girls said anything. And like they for sure knew I wasn't top 10. Like it was very clearly established. So I was like, come on, like somebody.
yeah, we should have just done it. We should have, like, what are they gonna say? Don't. Like, she's glazed. Like,
She's ready
okay.
as a band. Like let's
Yeah.
go.
Um, Yeah, for listeners, I fucked it. I fucked up. We like did a load and everything, and like honestly, like you looked so good in your check-in pictures. Like I was like, okay, this will be good. Like I had in my head, I was like, this will give us more data, and like
Mhm.
we went into prejudging. You weren't super filled out, and that it was intentional because it was like, I don't want to mess this up. I don't want to lose tie-ins. I don't want to mess with conditioning. I don't want your waist is like really tight. Let's play it a little conservative, get you on stage, see how you do, and if we need to fill out, unfortunately, they don't bring you back unless you're top 10. So,
No.
um, learning experience for all of us. But I really wish we could have seen how you looked because at that point, like, I mean, like we probably did another 150 grams of carbs in that afternoon.
Yeah.
And I mean, like your waist is holding really well. Um, all that aside, like, I mean, like it's still like it wouldn't, I know it wouldn't have made a difference. They don't really reach out chat finals. Like they do kind of ish, not really. Um, but I mean, yeah, like I think like overall, like getting to see those pictures side by side, like it was a phenomenal showing. And honestly, like I think in this off season, I think we doubled down on the glute meads. Because from the back, I think that really like the shape of your insertions and like the ratio of glute med to glute max is very eye catching, and you have those muscle bellies. I just think like looking back, we put so much emphasis on the delts, which it did make a difference.
Mhm.
Um, I think this growth phase, we need to stay at 3 lower days and like keep the 2 upper days still intentional. Um, but I mean, like there is something I want to talk about. The changes you made in terms of waist control, from earning your pro card to the pro show. I mean, that was extremely intentional. It made a huge difference. You looked like you brought your waist in like multiple inches, and I know in your measurements it wasn't necessarily the case, but it was just it improved the shape a lot. Can you tell listeners about that a little bit?
Yeah. So that had waist control, I think, has always been like one of my greater weaknesses, and some of it I think is exaggerated structurally, like with my rib cage. I do have like a pretty reasonable amount of rib flare. And then on top of that, I'm relatively flat chested. I don't have implants, so it's like it's noticeable when I'm struggling with it. Um, but um looking at the stage shots from Vegas and next to Galia, who got first in my class, that was one of the biggest like discrepancies that I noticed between our physiques. Yes, she was a little bit tighter than I was, but also her waist control was just like it was there and it was solid. Um, so then going through that and to address that in was it 5 weeks between Vegas and McAllen?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Um, Vacuums obviously were that's not something that I had done super regularly before. So that was something I started doing every single day, twice a day. Um, and actually, I had my PT like watch me do them and guide me through it and like double check that I was doing it right because it's kind of thing where I had seen people do it and I had been told how to do it, but I had never like I wasn't 100% positive that I was doing it as effectively as I could have. Um, so that was huge. I think that that was a really big part of it. I also got a lot of manual work done on my psoas, um, in combination with some things to like um my quads and honestly just like all over my back. I had a disc injury like years ago that kind of doesn't sit well with posing. So um getting that done and then truthfully just like practicing holds on posing. Like I would, go into the studio and I would set a timer and I would just like force myself to hold it for as long as I could and try to keep my breathing under control. And I'm glad that I did that as much as I did because I was so exhausted after posing on the pro stage. And like this is something I did posing with Phoebe, and Phoebe told me, she's like, comparisons in the IFBB are going to be longer. You're going to be standing there for a good amount of time. And so I intentionally was like trying to train that and trying to push it and get really comfortable with like holding that position. And even still, like, when I was on stage in McAllen, like both of my calves cramped, like my leg was shaking. Like it's disorienting. But yeah, a lot of vacuums and manual work I think truly made a world of a difference in my waist control.
That, I mean, it's something like I I'm really impressed by, because it was very obvious week to week, and like I think it was like the second or third week in, you could just see as you were doing check-ins, like because we were doing daily check-ins pretty much, and like as soon as you got it, like it was like, okay, you're twisted, you're held. And I mean, that was the thing, like it's hard. Posing doesn't come natural to me. Like I feel very, I feel like it takes a lot of intention and focus, and like being able to create the look that you know you have and that you want to display and be able to do it consistently. I think that's just going to come with reps, but that's where I do think, like specifically with everything that we've talked about, with like we have to just keep everything buttoned up, including like posing and waist control and endurance. Like that's an area we can exploit ahead of PEDs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a shame because like I see a lot of girls, they'll kind of lean into like the waist trainers or the belts while they're lifting. And I do believe, like I've seen you train, like you train hard, you understand biomechanics. Like, I mean, it is something that like you don't need nearly the management that I think some people do. Um, but I think for me, it's like it's even more reassuring to be like, okay, like those changes were made not because you put a squeam on or you put some like capsaicin on your stomach for like 5 weeks, like, you know, um,
Yeah,
like
the easy
you,
fixes don't actually fix anything usually.
I mean, you know, like you trained it, and I can see in my own physique, like I can see when I've been practicing vacuums, when I've not. Posing is that much harder, and like it's like cool to get it for like a picture. And I'm talking about myself here. It's like it's cool if I can hit the timer and be like, cool, I did it for a fourth of a second. But when you're up there like for 17 minutes, it's like you get exposed. And again, not you, but like just collectively as a whole. And that's something I hope listeners can kind of garner, is that like the waist trainers in themselves, like a lot of pros wear them. So this isn't me talking shit. It's not me like dogging on anyone. Like, you know, teaches their own. Um, but personally, like I found so much of a benefit coming from drilling the posing, like holding that, knowing like, okay, what goes first? Like, is it the glutes? Is it the stomach? Is it the front delt, like starting to come in? And really being able to identify too, then like rotationally, like, do you struggle with one side, like with internal rotation more than external rotation? Do you live in internal rotation on one side, so then it makes it difficult to train it in the opposing plane? And that's where I'm really proud of you for being like self-sufficient in that way. And then also working with Phoebe too, because like I've tuned into, like I've sat in on a lot of y'all sessions, and like it's helpful for me as a coach too. And I mean, she's incredible. Some people they do like, they complain like, oh, it's expensive, it's another cost, and it's like it's an investment. Like, I'm sorry, but like it's just like we live in a day and age where it's like if you're trying to check all your boxes and not have to compensate, like that's one, like, and it's a skill too. It's like, I mean, your posing has gotten significantly better in a very short horizon. So I mean, like I don't expect you to do that weekly in the off season, but like I think it's kind of cool for both of us to have it eye opening, be like, this is the potential of how much progress can be made doing these things. And like, you know, there's seasons to really like hit the gas and make sure like we don't lose that skill, but at the same time, like no, I think you did an incredible job like executing and knowing after USA is like, here are the things I want to work on, here's how I can work on it feasibly and get better in this short amount of time. But yeah, like you've been incredible to coach. I've enjoyed our coaching experience so much, and like I really appreciate, like I have so much gratitude for the trust that you put in me, and to be able to see it like pan out and like you develop as an athlete at this level and still have that same humility, that same drive that you had like when we first met. It doesn't always happen, and like, you know, and very rarely does someone um is someone actually okay with hitting the reset button when they make it to the next level and saying like, yeah, I got work to do, like, but it doesn't take away from like how skilled I am, and like you're incredibly humble. So that's why I'm gonna keep like beating you over the head with it. But like,
Well,
um, yeah.
yeah, it's been really truly like such an incredible experience getting to work with you. And I actually, when we were driving back from McAllen, I was sitting in the back seat and I was just kind of like teared up. I was looking at the check-in photos from the first check-in I did with you to my stage shots from McAllen, and like to see how far you brought my physique, absolutely. But also what you've been able to pull out of me as like a human being, and how much more I have fallen in love with this sport because of you. Truly, like this season I think was a really nice summation of like everything that we've been able to accomplish at this point. But yeah, the entire journey and experience of getting to work with a coach that is invested in you, like truly down to the bone is invested in you, has like changed my life. It's been amazing.
I mean, I'm not gonna cry on this podcast. Oh yeah, I'm not going to. Uh, but you're making it very hard. Uh, I no, I think like working with you has taught me a lot about the areas that I want to get better in as a coach. But I know that like you yourself, like you work with athletes. Do you largely work with lifestyle athletes, or are there any competitors that you kind of got under your wing?
Um, no competitors currently. It's all lifestyle. I have in the past worked with like a handful of bikini athletes, but nobody on the roster right now.
Yeah, it's dude, it's fucking tough when you're like when you're just skeletal, like when you're just like not, you're like, I can't even take care of myself. Like,
Yeah. So stay
uh,
the energy to like wash my hair at the end of the day. I don't feel like I should be taking on new prep clients. Like it would be irresponsible.
it's very wise of you. Where where do you see this off season, like the next few months? Like, what are the things you want to see in your physique?
Um, the dumb answer would be growth, I suppose. But I do want, and this is something that you and I had talked about directly, very, very briefly, but I'm excited to be a little bit more conservative with the weight gain going into this off season than we had to be last off season. Um, just to kind of completely selfishly, mentally, to be able to enjoy like the physique that we have built, and like to enjoy that, like this is my pro physique. Like I want to drag that out a little bit, but kind of, pull me back up to a more reasonable body fat and just kind of feel good for a while, like get training intensity back up, get my sleep patterns reorganized. And then I really like, I'm very much of the mindset of, if I don't step on stage for 2 years, but then I do step on stage eventually and I get a top 5 at a pro show, like that's what I want. I don't have any interest in spending hours doing cardio and months of starvation and thousands of dollars to not get a first call out again. So, as long as it takes for me to grow into the athlete that deserves to be in a top 5, that's kind of what I want to do. If we do that slow and steady, if we have to increase PEDs from what we've done previously, or, kind of whatever it takes. But I'm in it for the long haul. So if it takes a while, I'm good with that. But I'm ready to get bigger.
I mean, dude, the thing is, you're young, you're fresh, you're not jaded from the sport, like some of us. But no, I'm mostly kidding about that. But like, I think you have a good attitude, and like I know on the execution side, like it's very kind of you to say how this coaching experience has impacted you. But I mean, it's really impacted me because I mean, like you can't, and I'm sure you know this with your clients, is like you can't only pull out as much as they'll let you. It's like, just like with therapy, it's like if you know someone needs to work on something, like you can't take it there unless they're willing to take it there. Like they're kind of driving the ship. And I think you've done an incredible job, and you've made such good progress in seemingly such a short amount of time in a way that like I think is very aligned with your overarching goals, your ideologies around PED use. And this is something we kind of talked about like before we got on, because I for listeners, like I tell people, I'm like, yo, like if I'm bringing on a pro competitor, if I'm bringing on anyone who's like used PEDs, like I never want someone to be like pigeonholed or feel like the expectation is like, oh, Corey talks about drugs, you have to talk about drugs. And like I've had people try to get me with like gotcha moments for things. I'm like, we're not talking about this on podcast, and it's so scummy. But you said, before we got on, you're like, I think it's important that like listeners, competitors are not just understand that like there is a prevalence of use, probably more than they realize. And I think like with where you are now, I think like with this episode, hopefully listeners have been able to garner like, hey, like, there's a responsible way to go about it. And there's a lot of people doing it irresponsibly. And like, again, like I say that kind of with like a tone because it's like, I just think it sets like a really bad example when you're using it as a compensation. And that's something that's been important for me coaching someone at your potential to make sure that like, we're using it appropriately, even for someone who has such a high potential in the sport. So, I mean, like with that, thank you. But I guess for listeners who, kind of on that same note, who are in the position you were in maybe in 2020 and 23, is there any advice or anything you want them to further take away from this episode?
It's not really groundbreaking new type of advice. I'm sure that you've been told this by plenty of people, and a lot of people have said it, but like truly patience. Whether you're like really hungry for the national stage or getting your pro card, or whatever that consuming goal is, like patience. Because finishing the season in 2023 when I didn't get my pro card and I was so close, like that was completely soul crushing at the time. But now that I've reached this goal, and of course like it's easy for me to say this because I met my goal, but like truly I wouldn't change a single thing about what happened, because the athlete that I was when I earned my pro card was so much more deserving of it. Like even physique aside, just who I was as a person and what that like year in between brought out of me was like so worth it. If I had gotten my pro card in 23 and then tried to step on a pro stage, like I am not confident that pro debut would have been a good experience, or that I would be as like driven in the sport as I am today. So whatever you're chasing, be patient. Like don't stop working. You're gonna have to work your ass off for it, but be patient, because the best things don't happen super quickly. You're probably gonna have to wait, and that's okay.
I love it. It's a great way to kind of punctuate this. You are taking on clients, yes, in the near future. Okay. Who are the kind of clients you want to work with, you enjoy working with, who should be in your inbox, following your Instagram? What type of clients are you accepting right now?
Truly all types. My primary focus is bikini, and I would like to work on some fit model athletes also, if anybody is seeking a coach. Then lifestyle clients of all types I work with. I have a lot of like college age, a few athletes, some elderly folks that I absolutely love to death. So anybody, everyone is welcome.
Amazing. And where can people keep up with you, follow your journey, tune in on social media?
Primarily my biggest channel is Instagram. So it's Tater_Tater. And if you are in Austin, Texas, I train out of the C4 Performance Center. So you can find me there also.
Awesome. You guys, if you're in Austin, you're swinging through, you want to get a session with IFBB Pro, hit her up. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for taking the time. You guys, thank you for listening. As always, I will see you in the next one.